My name is John Hildebrandt, John Hildebrandt. I'm Vice President and General Manager of Cedar Point.
Excellent. Now, tell me a little bit about when you became involved in the process of bringing Gatekeeper to life. Does it start at Cedar Fair Corporate and then you collaborate from there? How does that?
Well, it's a combination of things that we had known for a long time that we were due for a new roller coaster. As one way of saying it, we looked at a lot of different options. We looked at building in the back of the park, the front of the park. We're in a unique piece of geography here. We're at Lake Erie on one side, Sandusky Bay on the other. We're really a barrier island, and we have to be very, very shrewd and very creative when it comes to finding space to put things. Because a lot of the times we have to kind of finesse it, so we move something or change something in order to accommodate a big project like this would be. So eventually this won out, and I think for a lot of very good reasons. Our new CEO at the time, Matt, we met, wanted to energize the beach, energize Lake Erie, see us, bring that vista to our guests more. Okay. Our front gate was kind of old and tired. It hadn't changed really since the late 60s, early 70s. It was time for a change. What could we do to combine the two things? And then almost at the same time, we started talking to B&M. They started talking to us about this new concept of a wing coaster. And so it was kind of serendipitous. Our needs and their coaster kind of came together at the same time. And we were able to kind of put a plan together. The wing coaster idea really caught on with us. We liked that because we didn't have anything like that. It was new. It reminded us a lot of Raptor back in '94, where we took a ride that was that had existed already. There had been Raptor-type inverted coasters, but much smaller, and said, well, look, we'll make it a Cedar Point inverted coaster. We'll make it bigger and faster, and bigger transitions and longer rolls and all those things, which we succeeded in doing. And Gatekeeper turned out to be a little bit like that too. Because there's one that exists in Italy, there's one at Dolly World down in Tennessee, one at Park in Chicago. We went and looked at those. We said, we like ours, we like that concept, we think our guests will like it. What do we do to make it uniquely Cedar Points? Okay, we'll make it higher. We'll add more elements. We'll do this really cool thing over the front entrance. We'll get it to fly through these ski holes. Nobody else has done anything like that. So people walk into the park, they look up and they'll say, "Wow!" We went for the wow factor, I guess, with the entrance to the park. And we're a coaster park. That's our trademark. That's sort of our brand identity. That's what we built our franchise on. So what better way to welcome guests into the park than see a world-class roller coaster right in front of your eyes?
Yeah, I'm just hearing what goes into something like this, because I don't give a lot of guest stuff.
And I will see you guys Monday.
This takes brain power, this takes a lot of design, years and years.
Well, putting the whole thing together is, a big effort. It involves so many different disciplines: architecture, planning, engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, construction talents, utilities. There's just so much, and that's just in the physical aspects of the ride. We also have to look at the marketing side of it, and the business side of it, the merchandise side of it. Create products that people want to buy that are associated with the ride. We know from historical reasons, the first year of a big new ride introduction, you're probably going to sell the most merchandise that year. So you want it to be the best. You want to make sure you do it right. So there's long lead times on a lot of those things as well. Picking out a logo, something that's going to be exciting, sell the ride, but look good on a shirt, because it has so many applications. It's all fun stuff. It really is.
It sounds like it. And you mentioned the branding and the identity. What all goes into coming up with the name Gatekeeper, the theme? Is that solely the responsibility of the marketing department? How does that work?
Naming a big ride like Gatekeeper, a big signature ride, is a complex thing too. although there have been times certain rides at Cedar Point were named like that, and everyone had that, wow, that's the name, let's go with it. Other times we've gone through long processes where we've tested names with consumers. We've done rough logos and showed the name with a logo to different kinds of people, mostly people who ride coasters, and say, what do you think of this? But ideally you want a ride that's going to work well in merchandise, that can work well on a TV spot, on a TV screen, that'll look good in signage, that will excite people. It's got to be unique, different. It's got to say something about the ride, about the essence of the ride, because the name will drive everything, ultimately. It really is the driver. It sets the tone, sets the theme, if you will. We considered a lot of names before we chose Gatekeeper. The process does start originate in the marketing department and design departments. They work together. We get input from our advertising agency. So there's a lot of hands get into it, and ultimately senior management picks it. I think typically I found that's the way it works. Gatekeeper evolved because it all just fell together, because we had all the work at the front gate. Somebody came up with the idea of a creature who's like the gatekeeper, and we had that aha moment, so that turned out to be an easy decision. But we think back to Raptor, which was one of our great names, I think. Very successful merchandise logo and all that. That name was came up with by our treasurer, finance guy, bean counter. And when we first announced Raptor, this was back in Jurassic Park days. Everybody thought we were talking about the Velociraptor, or a dinosaur. And we weren't at all. It was a bird of prey. And that's a name that's worked very, very well.
That's so fascinating. And would you be able to talk about any other, names or concepts that were thought of, but for one reason or another it just didn't seem to fit?
Can't think of any right now that we actually, we had a long list, but they're not coming to me right now. In terms of ones we thought maybe were good but didn't work. Sometimes when you go through the whole list creation process, you'll come up with some names that say, this would be a really cool name for a water ride, or this would be a really cool name for a suspended coaster, okay, but maybe not for your task at hand. And we put them aside to save them. And I've seen that happen.
So fascinating. What were some of the parameters that you had set in terms of the space that this ride takes up? Because obviously you had to move something, you had to go over existing portions of the park. So if you could just speak to the design challenges, being that this is a constrained area.
We certainly have a lot of design challenges anytime we do a major project at Cedar Point, because we're surrounded by water. We have limited space, and we are an old park that evolved over 140 plus years. So things are not laid out as perfectly as you might want. There's no master plan where they thought, hey, this is the park. Now in 5 years this will be the park. In 10 years this will be the park. We've evolved, okay, over long periods of time. Different managers, different management styles, different management priorities, live through many different economies. So that's all kind of background for it. In this case, we did take out 2 older rides to make room for a Gatekeeper, Space Spiral and Disaster Transport. Older rides that had lived their useful lives, were kind of a pain from a maintenance perspective, and had declining ridership. But to put Gatekeeper where we put it, right on the lake, to have that view of the lake and everything, this is where we had to do it. And it worked out very well. It was a good trade, I think. And interestingly, Gatekeeper almost reaches all the way lake to bay, almost goes across the whole peninsula, ends down there by the Blue Street. So it wraps around the front gate and back. It's just a different thing. But we had to relocate some of our picnic shelters, redesign our parking on this side. All challenges, but all meetable ones.
And going back to Disaster Transport for a minute, how long is a ride like that on the chopping block, per se, before you come up with something that is a worthy replacement? Is that the type of ride where you realize for years its usable life cycle is coming to an end and you start planning towards that, or was it just convenient that you needed a spot to put this ride?
I think mainly we needed a spot to put this ride, and when we looked around for various places, this was one of them. And we thought we could dispense with these older two rides, and it would be a good trade. It made economic sense. If you asked our guests, what would you rather have, a big new $25 million shiny new wing coaster, or keep these two rides, I think they'd vote for the coaster. But at the same time, we really do respect the history here, and a lot of the older rides, our railroad, the Cedar Point Lake Erie Railroad, is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. We're still an authentic narrow gauge steam locomotive railroad, one of the very few at any amusement park or theme park in the country.
That's excellent, especially when I see a lot of theme parks removing their transportation in favor of bigger, newer rides or whatever they want to replace it with. I know, like for instance, with my family, they choose to go to theme parks where you can get around on the train and you can ride around and see it because they don't do a lot of moving rides. So that's definitely a great asset.
We still have a sky ride at Cedar Point, and in fact, we used to have two. When I first started at Cedar Point and worked I was in college in 1969. I worked on the Frontier Lift, which was a sky ride, just like the one we have now. It went from where Coaster's restaurant is now out to Frontier Town and back. So sky ride is a great transportation ride, a great visual ride, a great family ride. That's really important in the mix.
And is each ride evaluated year to year for whether or not it justifies the space it's taking up and maintenance expense?
I wouldn't say that we look at it that specifically, but when we put a big ride in, we do kind of look for where we can economize or where we can take a few out. So you're just not adding to the cost and adding to the inventory without thinking through it. I think that's a discipline you have to do in this day and age. You can't just add willy-nilly things that aren't producing. You need to get them out.
I'm sure that's a tough part of the job. Not only what do we add, but what do we...
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And does the fact that two family rides were removed in favor of a high-thrill attraction, does that speak to Cedar Point's priorities at all going forward?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we're going to be coming back with family attractions in the short term. I think our guests will see that. So it wasn't a conscious decision to relegate family to secondary status. It was we needed to do this coaster. It was time to do it. This is where we needed to do it. This is where it made the most sense, and put all that together. That's the road we're down.
And I know Rob talked briefly about family rides in the works, and obviously you can't discuss details, but is there any kind of priority moving forward to reintroduce certain types of attractions to Cedar Point that you may have had in the past? For instance, I believe you've had at least 3 dark attractions, and those are all gone now.
I'm a big fan of dark rides. I think every amusement park, every great amusement park should have a dark ride, so I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. Fair enough. And talk a little bit for a minute about your first experience after watching this ride going up, certainly all winter, and being heavily involved in the planning process. What was it like?
Very exciting to ride for that first time. I've had the opportunity to do that on a lot of rides, and it is a little bit like being present at birth, I guess, or something like that, because they become your kids after a while, in one sense. It is very cool to watch it being built. From my office window, I have a clear view of the main hill and the Camelback, and I could watch the progress, all last fall and during the winter. So you get itchy, like what's it going to be like? And although I had ridden a ride in Chicago similar, still not the same. So that first day was a lot of fun. I rode on the leaving the station would be on the lake side, front row on the right-hand side. So when we went down over the top of the lift into the Immelman turn, we were down low. Very cool.
Did
It was so fast.
about it catch you off guard?
Yes, how fast it was. Because when you look at it from the midway, it does not look that fast. I don't think. Other people have commented on that too. But when you're on it, it's greased lightning. It's really fast, and you're just flying. And that surprised me. The amount of air time when you go over the Camelback, that was very cool. I thought the keyholes would be great, and they were, because you have a tendency to go like that. You're going to lose a limb or something. And it's a nice long ride, 2.5 minutes. So and the transitions are smooth. You go in and go out smoothly. The restraint system is excellent, even better than I anticipated.
And certainly not with Gatekeeper, but has there ever been a moment since you've been at Cedar Point for long where a new attraction has disappointed and that's taught you something about what not to add to the park, or has it pretty much been right on the...
No, we've had our stumbles. Avalanche Run, which morphed into Disaster Transport, no longer here, was not as successful as we thought it would be. It was a bobsled ride, and the way it was originally manufactured, it was 6-person. We made it 10-person because we thought we needed more capacity. So we changed the sleds from being smaller to being bigger. When we did that, I think it lost some of its excitement. And probably we would do that we'd do that differently if we could do it over again.
I heard, I'm not sure if I verified it, but I heard from one source that the reason it was enclosed was partly due to sand building up on the track. Have you heard that?
I don't recall that. I know it was like 1990. We were looking for something to come back after Magnum, and we talked to a company out of Florida that said we could create this indoor roller coaster experience with all this great theming through space and everything, and we like the idea of an indoor roller coaster because it's rain or shine, and so that's why we decided I don't think it was the fact that Avalanche Run that we had sand issues.
Just wanted to see if I could verify that. I'll just leave that out of the documentary then. Would you mind speaking to the symbolism of this ride, because we're approaching this from the angle of the symbolism of its iconicness. You've had all these iconic attractions. This is kind of the icon of all icons now at Cedar Point. The pressure behind creating that.
Well, we didn't deliberately set out to create an icon for the park, because the Cedar Point is still, that's the icon, that's the brand, that's the concept, supported by Millennium Force and Gatekeeper and all these other attractions. It's still the overriding attraction in Cedar Point. But in the business, there's a lot of discussion about, if you really want something to be iconic, it's got to have a spirit. It's got to be alive. It's got to be a creature. Like a raptor, like Gatekeeper is. That breathes life into the whole process.
And what was the risk involved? How high were the stakes? Because certainly investing that much money, $25, $30 million into a new attraction.
It's a huge investment for a park like Cedar Point. So it is a big roll of the dice. If you spent $25 million and you didn't get a ride that was a $25 million ride, you'd be in trouble. So you do everything you can to make sure you get what you're paying for. I think we have. And all of us feel very good about that.
How do you know it's a success?
I can know it's a success by the reaction of people like just today, where we've had 1,000 coaster enthusiasts or more ride the ride already. They're a hard bunch. I mean, they've ridden a lot of rides, and they're very discerning. They're very critical if you don't do something right. They're smart about rides. They understand. And my reaction in talking to people who have ridden it is they think it's a great ride. Our own employees who have ridden it are very positive about it. One of a little pleasant surprise for us is that I think the age demo that it's going to appeal to is broader than we thought originally. I think we'll have a lot of families ride it because it's exhilarating and fun, not overly scary.
When I was doing some research for this documentary, I I believe I found that the original switchback railway was just basically a few yards down the beach from this, and it really seems like the beach is the reason that Cedar Point exists.
No question. The beach is what put Cedar Point on the map back in the 1870s, 1880s. That was the primary appeal. The reason the Hotel Breakers was built was because of its location on the beach. No question. This was also the location for a really nasty wooden roller coaster that was here from the mid 30s, I believe, until the early 50s, the Cyclone, which was a Robert Traver design, we believe. And he's the guy that built the scariest wooden roller coasters of all time. And all the talk we hear about it is it was just a tremendous wooden roller coaster.
Does this mark a sort of return to the beach roots in a sense, or continue on that legacy?
Yeah, we're trying to do both things. We're trying to return to our, we're talking about rides, I guess, mostly today, but we have to think in the context of the whole park and the whole, everything we're selling. We're selling a family experience. We have a lot of other things here besides roller coasters. We have resorts, hotels, water park, campground, marina, all those things. Those are all very important and rely more so on the lake and the ambience the lake creates on the beach.
And I got one more question. He might have one or two, but I just wanted to find out, with all the years that you've put into this park and all the work, what is the most rewarding aspect of seeing something like Gatekeeper come to life? What really kind of drives you and makes you get up every day?
Oh, that's an easy question. It's watching the reaction of people after they've ridden it. Standing at the base of the exit and saying, "What'd you think? What'd you think? Did you like it? What'd you think?" And I do that all the time. I could stand at the exit to Raptor or Maverick or Millennium Force, any of our great rides, Top Thrill Dragster, and you know whether you've got a hit or a miss. And it's a good way to pump yourself up anytime you're feeling a little bit down. Talk to guests after they get off a great roller coaster. They're always in a good mood.
That's incredible. Did you have a question for me?
I think you guys covered it. I was going to say, does it ever, you guys put in all these monstrous coasters, is it always still kind of astonishing to see that, like, when it's finally done and completed, like, we did it again, does that ever lose its...
No, I don't think it ever does. You don't get jaded to it at all. You don't get jaded. It's too big a thrill. Each project has its own life, and I often say, looking back over the years, you throw out a year to me and I'll tell you what the new attraction was. Say, 1985 was Avalanche Run, 1989 was Magnum, 1996 was Mantis, 1978 was Gemini, 1976 was Corkscrew. Those rides take on a life of their own, and they're distinct sort of brands within themselves, within the overbrand of Cedar Point. But as projects go, each is different challenges, so they don't blend together. You still get a thrill.
You mentioned a lot of record-breaking rides. This just came to mind. We saw 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet, but then we've seen rides like Maverick that don't specifically break this record-shattering, earth-shattering level of thrill. Is that era kind of gone by now for Cedar Point, or is that always important?
It can be. I think, as I said in my comments this morning when we kind of unveiled the ride to the group, stats are great. Stats sell, and certain stats can recreate certain situations. If you're going to have a coaster 300 feet high, that's a big deal in and of itself. But ultimately, it's about the ride experience, okay? And that's what we're after. Raptor was not the highest, steepest, or fastest roller coaster in the world, or even at Cedar Point when it opened in '94. Magnum was higher. Magnum was faster. But Raptor was a whole brand new kind of experience. And Gatekeeper is the same thing. It's 169 feet, 170 feet high. We have several rides higher than that. So it's not about stats ultimately. It's about the ride experience. You can have wonderful smaller wooden roller coasters. They don't have to be 130 feet high.
Is it tough to have years where you focus more on improving the park, or focus more on the things that you can't really market? You can't really say we have added pavers instead of asphalt. We've added a new restaurant. You can't really market that.
That's always a little frustrating, frankly. A good observation. You know, adding pavers and fixing up restrooms and painting this and painting that and doing those kinds of things are not as exciting, frankly, as a project like this. But they're important too. You have to do them, and we do. But no question, big new projects like this are more fun.
And was there anything we didn't talk about?
No, I think you guys were covered everything. Very in depth. Enjoyed it.